Here's our first video of Unit 8. A little review of Pythagorean theorem. Some things to quickly fill out here on top. Used to find the Pythagorean theorem is used to find the missing side of a right triangle. Sides A and B are called legs. And I'm referring to that picture on the left there. C is always the hypo. So we always put C directly across from the right angle. We always put C here in this position. And the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Let's do a review question of finding the hypo. If I can get this to slide down. All right, so here is questions 1 and 2. They're both already filled out for you. We have an example where we have to find the C on number 1. And then ignore that little 2 there. And then we have to find an A or B on number 2. So number 1, we'll put that X in the C spot. And then A and B for 8 and 13, it doesn't matter which one's A or B. Just make sure you take A squared plus B squared. So there's 8 squared plus 13 squared equals x squared. We square 8 and 13. And then we add those together, and then our last step is to take the square root. So it's a square root of 233. We're going to round it to approximately 15.3. All right, so let's look at number 2 here. When we have to find A or B. So I put it in the B spot. It does not necessarily have to be there. You could have put it in the A spot, but the math is the same. The only thing that's different is the X and 7 would just flip spots. This is the C that has to go on the right-hand side. So the problem for 1 and the problem for 2, the process is going to be similar but different. And here's the difference is after I square the 49 and the 7 and the 9, it's no longer addition. See, over here we added them together because they're on the same side together, but here they are not on the same side. Therefore, my process to get x by itself, and I have to subtract 49 to both sides. That's the difference. So now I have x squared equals 32 because I did 81 minus 49, and then I get approximately 5.7. The square root of 32 is right around 5.7. One thing I can tell you this right now is to make sure you know this. The C in every one of these has to be the biggest. The hypo is always the biggest. Look at this. This is our C. It's 15.3. Absolutely, it is bigger than 13 and 8. When you get this answer to be A or B, it has to be smaller than C. So it is smaller than 9. So we do know we're in the ballpark. We do know we've done a little something right because C always has to be the biggest. So remember that when you're doing your math. Application. Word problems here. A roofer leaned a 16-foot ladder against the house. At the base of the ladder is 5 feet from the house. How high up the house does the ladder reach? So my math is anytime you have a ladder, I'm going to draw the picture out here for a second because I already drew it underneath here. Ladders always lean. in our pictures. Okay, ladders always lean. Ladders are always the hypo because it's going to lean up against the side of the house, and then here's the ground down here. So this is the foot of the ladder. So on this picture, I'm going to have a 16-foot ladder, and then the base of the ladder is 5 foot away from the wall. How high up the wall does the ladder hit? So that would be this portion. So here's my math here. So I'm finding an A or a B. Again, I put it in the B spot because the hypo is across from the right angle. That's the C. So once again, if you're finding an A or a B, you are going to subtract at the end before you take the square root. So I subtracted 25 to get 256 minus 25 to get 231. Took the square root, which is always the last step of the Pythagorean theorem, and got 15.2. Kurt is building a rectangular deck. If the dimensions of the deck are 10 by 23, what's the length of the diagonal? So here is my rectangular deck, 10 by 23. So the diagonal is always the hypo. So there is me trying to find the diagonal. The diagonal always goes through the middle. So you are finding a C on this one. So there's my process. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. C is the X. So because we have A and B on the same side and we have numbers there, this is when we add them. We are going to add them here. So square 10, 23, add them together, get 629. Last steps, take the square roots. Square root of 629 is roughly about 25.1. All right, last problem. Ashley jogged 3.4 miles east, 5.7 miles south. Okay, so if we have Ashley, east is to the right, so we put a 3.4, and 5.7 south. How far away is she is the actual diagonal. It's not how far she's actually gone. It's a straight diagonal to her current location. So it's never 3.4 plus 5.7. That's how far she's gone. That's not how far away she is. So there is my math. We are finding C, because that's the diagonal. So there is 3.4 squared plus 5.7 squared equals x squared. Because they're on the same side, we're adding them again. Lots of decimals in Pythagorean theorem. There's nothing wrong with that. We take the square root of 44.05 and we're done to get 6.6. All right, on to the second page, Pythagorean theorem converse. So what this does is, let's remind you of the Pythagorean theorem. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared gives us a right triangle. So what they notice is that if we don't have a squared plus b squared equals c squared, we actually can compare, and the a squared and b squared, we can compare this information here to c squared and actually determine if it's acute or obtuse triangle. So all you would be doing is you're going to take your smallest two numbers are always a and b. Your biggest number is always c. So if we square c squared and it's bigger, see that the mouth is eating the c, it is obtuse. If a squared plus b squared is bigger than the c squared, it's acute. So let me take you through a little test here. So when I give you sides 3, 7, and 9, you always want to tell if it's a triangle first. And how do you do that? Is you have to do this little test first that I have here. You must take the two smallest sides, add them together, and they must be bigger than the third side. This is a triangle because 3 plus 7 is greater than 9. So we can do this little test. We can test if it's right, obtuse, or acute. Now look at number 2 here. I already did my check there. 20 plus 21. I'm not going to say add the first two numbers. I'm going to say add the two smallest numbers. 20 plus 21 is way bigger than 29. So yes, we're good. We can do this. All right, so now that I know number 1 and number 2 are triangles, I'm going to go ahead and do this test. I'm going to test if it's a right triangle, obtuse, or acute. So what I'll do here is I'm going to square c squared is 81. And then I have a and b squared. 9 plus 49 is 58. So since 81 is bigger than 58, it's going to be obtuse. That is not a right triangle. That's an obtuse triangle. So we're going to check obtuse. Okay, so number 2, me trying to get this to work. Hey, there it goes. Let's look at 29 squared versus 20 squared plus 21 squared. So these are equal. So this is a right triangle. 8041 equals 841. That's why I checked right. All right, let's look at number 2. Or I'm sorry, 3 and 4. 3 and 4. 3 is where you are hopefully you catch this. Since 4 plus 11 is not bigger than 16, you cannot do anything. You just say 4 plus 11 is 15. It's not bigger than 16. This isn't even a triangle. So you can stop there. That's why we do that test before we even, that's why we check it before we even check to see what triangle it is. It's not even a triangle. So 17 and 17, they are the same number, but we still will add the two smalls. The two smalls is 17 plus 17. That is bigger than 22. So I am going to do a squared plus b squared is over here on the right. 17 squared plus 17 squared is 289 plus 289 is 578. And then 22 squared is 44. 578 is bigger. So a squared plus b squared is bigger. So when I go up to my work here, if a squared plus b squared is bigger, it is acute. A squared plus b squared is bigger. Okay, so I want you to try 5 and 6. I'm going to wait 5 seconds, pause the video. I'm going to have you try 5 and 6. And now I'm going to show you the answer. So here's what 5 and 6 come out to be. So 18 and 24 is bigger than 30, so I can do the tests. I square the two smalls and get 900, and after I add them, 30 squared is 900. These are equal, so this is a right triangle. And I hope you didn't get caught on number 6. 8 plus 15 has to be bigger than 23. It cannot be equal to. It must be bigger. So that's why this is a no. So now if you were not sure about that, know that it must be bigger. And that is our video on Pythagorean theorem and its converse.